Hey guys, it's Bailey. Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a quick look inside Too Faced Cosmetics' brand new Cocoa Contour Palette. This is a face contouring and highlighting kit that one of you guys actually made me aware of when they launched it. They posted it on Instagram and one of you guys tagged me immediately. I saw it, and because a ton of people have been coming out with highlight and contour palettes, but because and I haven't tried all of them. I have a few, haven't tried all of them, but because Too Faced is so well known for their bronzers, and I do have, as you'll see throughout this video, quite a bit of experience with their bronzers, I really wanted to give this a go because ideally the perfect contour palette will have just enough product to get the job done without having a ton of excess, which is something I've personally experienced with the few contour palettes that I have. So for a look at not only the products that come inside this palette, but also the bronzers both in and outside of the Too Faced bronzer line, let's get started. So first let's begin with the palette itself. This, like I said, retails for $40. It comes in cardboard packaging. You can see there's a nicely sized mirror here that I actually used to get ready. There will be a demo going on throughout this entire video of me doing two of the looks. They actually provide a little book, as Too Faced typically does with all of their sets or palettes. And in here you get three different kinds of looks. First one, which is sort of a light all over bronzing to see kind of how you would use this in a minimalist way. And then a full on ultra glam bronze over here to the left. There is one, which is the glam one, is what I'm currently wearing today. If I look extra bronze, that's why. And then there is sort of an in-between here that if you're going for a little bit more than a minimal look and a little bit less than a glam look, they got you covered. Beyond just the booklet, you actually get the product. You have 4 different powders in here and then one of their teddy bear hair kabuki brushes. This is the contour buki brush. You can see it's slightly angled. It is relatively dense, but you can see it's small enough that it really does fit right in your contour. This is what I used for most of the demo that you'll see throughout this video, and it performs beautifully. Too Faced is one of the few brands out there who, when they put a brush in a palette, I don't immediately want to throw it away. It actually is practical, and so this is actually a nice asset to this palette. Here you have the 4 powders, which if you are familiar with the chocolate line, I think all of these have their chocolate complex, which is unique to Too Faced, so it does smell like chocolate. Some of you love it, some of you hate it, something to be aware of regardless before you buy this palette, because I know some people are more sensitive to having scents in their facial products than others. For those of you who haven't tried it though, I would say that the scent dissipates immediately. I never smell it once it goes on my skin, but the palette itself smells heavenly once you open it up. So the colors that come inside are light cocoa, and despite having the word cocoa in the name, it really isn't. It's more of a highlight powder. Then there is medium cocoa, which is very similar, although slightly different than the milk chocolate bronzer. There's dark cocoa, which is comparable to the chocolate soleil bronzer, but slightly more orange, which you should see comparison swatches flashing up here. And then there is pop of light, which is a seriously flashy highlighter. The base is relatively non-existent. It's almost like a transparent base with, I wouldn't call them chunky, but more noticeable gold shimmer. To give you an idea of how much product you're getting in here, one of these squares is half the size of a full-size Too Faced bronzer. So effectively, you are getting 2 full-size bronzers worth of product for just $10 more than you would for one of the bronzers, which I personally like because I can never, if you wear one bronzer every day faithfully, then you will blow through product really fast. I personally don't. I like getting kind of smaller powders like this where it's still a really nice sized product, but it's not so much that the product will go bad sooner than you actually use it up. Something else I want to point out that I thought was interesting about this particular set is that unlike all of the other bronzer kits that Too Faced has come out with, these are totally new bronzer shades. As of right now, they have 2, aside from their single full-size bronzers, they have 2 different kits out. One was from a summer collection that I reviewed. I can link that down in the info bar below. And then one I think is a stack of 4 travel size or like miniature size bronzers that retails for $22, but all of the bronzers included in those collections they're from the permanent line. These are not. You can see from the shades light cocoa, medium, dark, and in the comparison swatches that each of these are totally different from the normal line. So if you do happen to like one of these shades, it's not like you run out. You can't go run and grab it and either pop it back in here or just incorporate it into your everyday makeup routine. Unfortunately, it means you will have to go and repurchase the entire palette again, which is unusual for them. All that aside, I now want to get into the actual powders and how they perform, what I think of them, etc. First up is light cocoa, and I gotta be honest, this is the one that I thought I was going to dislike the most in this palette. Like I said, I've tried a few different contour palettes, one of which is actually my all-time favorite. It's the My Sculpted Face palette from It Cosmetics, but there is sort of a it's the least used powder in here. It's this white here that's kind of used as a setting powder. It's really sort of ambiguous as to what it's supposed to be used for, therefore it goes unused. I thought that was kind of what this powder was going to be like. In reality, it might be my most favorite powder in this palette, and I'm really happy to say it is a near dupe for the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powders. Here I have, these are the only three I own in the Ambient Lighting Powder palette. I would have to say it falls smack dab in between dim light and incandescent light. It's not quite as deep as dim, but it's has a little less highlight than incandescent. But the point is that the texture is so smooth and refined, and it has just a hint of that satin finish that it provides the same soft focus radiance that these palettes do. And it's so funny because I recently talked about this in a separate review, saying how they're my favorite and I've yet to find a dupe, and here I have found a dupe as far as texture and finish goes in the Cocoa Contour palette. Next are medium cocoa and dark cocoa. Like I mentioned when I was running through these shades really quickly, they are very similar to the Milk Chocolate and Chocolate Soleil bronzers. The one main difference I would say is that dark cocoa leans a little bit more orange than Chocolate Soleil, but overall the textures are way more finely milled than the Chocolate Soleil bronzers. I'd have to say I almost prefer these textures over those, and I absolutely love the Chocolate Soleil bronzers, but these are ultra fine. Some might find the medium cocoa shade they tend to recommend using as sort of an overall bronzer, running through your hairline, kind of in larger areas of your cheeks, and then very subtly along your jawline. This is going to be a great shade for fair, and then buildable for even those medium skin tones. But then medium to deep are going to want to reach for the dark cocoa, and I'm afraid won't actually get that much use from medium cocoa, but dark cocoa, it is nice to know that you have an option in this palette with dark cocoa, because this is really nice and buildable, yet it's not so orange that it's going to unflatter the fairest of the fair. So in the super subtle look, they recommend just using light cocoa and medium cocoa to highlight and contour or sort of overall bronze your face. But right now, I'm not only wearing medium cocoa as a bronzer, but then I went in with dark cocoa to really define the hollows of my cheeks and add a little bit more depth to the perimeter of my face, mainly in my hairline and down the sides of my nose, to kind of truly contour as opposed to bronze. And then the last powder, which ironically I thought was going to be my favorite, is actually my least favorite from the palette. It's the Pop of Light. It is kind of the true authentic highlighter of the palette, but it contains such intense shimmer that I really don't like it. I thought the base was going to be more comparable to Snow Bunny Highlight, which is this beautiful white frosty gold shimmer. The shimmer itself is kind of sparse, so I worry that it doesn't really look purposeful. It kind of looks like you just got into some glitter somewhere and it stuck with you for the rest of the day. And don't get me wrong, I love glitter, especially on the eyes. I've done a ton of tutorials with glitter, not afraid of it. But just when it's on your face selectively, it defeats the purpose of having a natural or as natural as you can get looking highlight and contour. That being said, I'm sure there is a time and a place for this glittery highlight, but it wasn't personally my favorite from this palette. So time for final thoughts. I really like this contour palette. It probably is my favorite of those that I have tried so far, mostly because it really simplifies everything down into a palette that isn't intimidating, and yet you do have everything you absolutely need in there to get the job done. Also, there's a fantastic dupe for an ambient lighting powder, which I absolutely love because those are the shades that I run through the most quickly. But like I said, it's not without its downsides. I definitely don't think this shimmery shade is going to be for everyone. And if you already own some of the full-size permanent bronzers from the Too Faced collection, you might find that these are a little redundant for you. But if you're looking for an entire set that you can throw into your to-go bag, your vacation bag, wherever it is you're going, this is a great way to do it. And it's relatively inexpensive. At $40, you do get 4 different powders and a brush that you can actually use and you're not going to throw away, which is really nice. So those are my thoughts on the new Too Faced Cocoa Contour Palette. I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking about it. If you've tried it, if you're thinking of trying it, let me know in the comments below. Beyond that, thanks again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!